Good afternoon. Welcome to Bloomerang Academy, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we're talking about creating and managing a recurring gifts program. This is the first in our series of webinars about the complete recurring giving roadmap. So, if you haven't already done so, check that out on our website. We'll also tell you what else is in the series at the end of this class. Joining us today is the second half of Die Squared, our resident database consultant, Diana Cox. She brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise and experience from the nonprofit world, and I'm so happy to have her join us today. Welcome, Di.
Hi, thanks, Diana. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is a great tandem, so I'm always happy to have you on Academy. Thanks for being here today.
Of course, and I love being on, and I love being the second half of Diana Squared. So for those of you who don't know, my name's Diana, and I go by Di. Diana was at Bloomerang before I was, so she got dibs on the name. But we're definitely Die Squared. Okay, so for our agenda today, we're going to take a look at a couple of things here. So the first thing will be recurring gifts versus pledges. I think it's really important to kind of establish the difference, make sure that, jargon is correct across the board here so that you guys know what you're offering people, know internally what you're doing, and if you are communicating to support, you know what you're asking questions about with them. Next, we'll be talking about why should you even consider a recurring gifts program. And then once you've started one, stewarding those recurring donors, which is so important and I think a really overlooked piece in the recurring gifts world. And then we'll pop into the Bloomerang database and we're going to take a look at actually tracking those recurring gifts in Bloomerang, and we'll talk about some reports. We'll take a look at a couple of dashboards with that. So just kind of an overall picture of it. And then like Diana said, we'll have some resources at the end. We'll have some additional slides to kind of show you what's going on with those. And we'll have a question and answer section. So to get started, what is the difference between a recurring gift and a pledge? They are not the same thing. A pledge is a finite amount of money promised to an organization. It has a definite start and end date on it. And in most cases, they do not automatically withdraw from a bank account. They can, but again, in most cases, they don't. So because of that, most organizations send out pledge reminders a month or a couple of weeks before the pledge payment is due, depending on what that pledge schedule looks like. Conversely to that, a recurring gift is a set amount of money and it's paid on a schedule. And in most cases, it is automatically withdrawn from a bank account. And there's no end date on it. So it is an infinite amount of money. The most common schedule of this is monthly, but there are a lot of different schedules for your recurring gifts. And so it's important to have both of these kinds of gifts for the stability of your organization. So it's really important to have those pledges. They're usually larger pieces of money, chunks that are coming in over that schedule and can be a really big boon to the organization. And recurring gifts can really become your bread and butter. And, you make sure that you understand that's hitting at the same time on that schedule every time. You haven't had to send that reminder, and it really, really can streamline your entire process. So why should organizations consider a recurring gift program? A recurring gifts program is a concerted effort to increase the number of givers a nonprofit has on that recurring basis. A recurring giving program is cost effective and it can ensure a consistent revenue stream. And it's also relatively simple when you want to go in and upgrade your current donor giving. Another great benefit of a recurring gifts program is that it can have a really positive impact on donor retention. With recurring gifts, you're not sending out your normal quarterly appeals to this group of donors, and you're not sending acknowledgement letters every gift. So giving correspondence is sent annually. You're going to, thank them at the beginning when they start the gift, and you're going to send out a letter annually. For organizations who are still using paper appeals and acknowledgments, this can really save a significant amount of money as you build out your recurring donor base. It can also really free up time for your development team since recurring donations come out automatically. And if you're using that Bloomerang software, they'll land on your constituent record every time they come in with no data entry requirements. So in this slide, you can see a chart of how a recurring gifts program can positively benefit your annual donations for your current constituents at various giving levels based on that donation amount. So I've color-coded the chart. If you are red-green colorblind, let us know and I can make some changes to this chart. We haven't had any complaints yet, but I did want to throw that out there. So right now, green is that target ask amount. So that is what you should be asking for at their current donor level. So, you know, if they are giving annually $25 a year, asking for a $5 monthly donation will increase that giving to $60 a year. So it can really have a really big impact without much effort to it. Yellow is an ask amount that's still an increase, and it might be more or less than that target amount. So, you know, at the $25 level, you don't want to do less than a $5 a month giving. But at $50, $5 a month would up it to $60. So it's still more, but it's not that really sweet spot. $120 would be that sweet spot, so that $10 a month gift. Going over that is $180, which is still a sweet spot. It's still even more, but $120 is probably going to be where most of your donors are. And then red is kind of your long shot giving. So hopefully you'll have some people who want to go from a $50 annual gift to a $20 a month donation, which would up them to $240 a year. But that's a really big jump. So that should not necessarily be an expectation, but something you are aware of if you have a conversation with your donors on this. And then the opposite side of the red here, you don't want to, for example, ask for a $5 a month donation from somebody who's giving more than $60 a year already, because that will actually constitute a downgrade of giving. So you really want to stay within that green to yellow range and try to avoid red on the low end and, you know, really not have an expectation of red on the high end. As a quick note on this, if you segment your appeals by annual giving amounts, the recommended donation amounts should be the yellow and green areas. So make sure that you provide an other section as well in case they don't want to give, you know, a recurring gift or they don't want to give these amounts. But, you know, saying, you know, we would love you to be a recurring donor. Last year you gave us $50. Please consider an annual, you know, recurring, or please, you know, a monthly recurring gift. And you can give the amounts of $5 a month, $10 a month, $15 a month, other. And that way, if they do want to do $20 a month, they can write that in. If they really just want to do a one-time donation of $25, because that's what they do to $25 gifts annually, that's fine too. So you're not excluding that giving, you're just giving them some additional options. All right. Since recurring donation payments happen automatically on a schedule, long-term recurring givers become year-over-year donors. And kind of as I already mentioned, that can be positive for your donor retention score. I wanted to talk a little bit about donor retention. It's something that we focus on a lot here at Bloomerang, and I think it's really important for the longevity of nonprofits, and so it's important to be aware of. 45% is the average donor retention rate for nonprofits industry-wide, and that is the goal you should be aiming for if you're below that level. If you are at 45% or above, great job. And remember that it's cheaper to maintain the donor base you have instead of constantly bringing in more. The average retention rate of a first-time donor is only 20%. Recurring donors have a retention rate of 90%. So that higher your retention rate is already, the better off you are. And if you can transform some of them into recurring donors, the better off you are long-term. All right. And one of the questions we get asked is, how do we measure donor retention? So donor retention is measured by taking all of your returning donors in year 2 and dividing them by all of your donors in year 1. So the chart in this slide shows the attrition rate at 20%, 40%, and 60% over the course of 3 years, and how many donors you will have left if you do not obtain any new donors, or if you obtain new donors and they don't give another gift. Remember, it's only that 20% rate. So this is not sustainable long term. The first time donor cultivation is obviously really essential. Again, we're looking at only 20% rate there. But for anybody who receives a personal thank you call within the first 48 hours of you receiving their gift, are 4 times more likely to donate to your organization a second time. So there are a lot of different strategies that we can use to, make sure that donor retention is our focus, and you're not constantly having to go back to that pool of all potential donors and bring some into your organization. And then I will kind of head off at the pass talking about that first time donor call. If you do not have a phone number for your first time donors, send them a personal email or a handwritten note, again, within that first 48 hours. Add your phone number and an invitation for them to call you. Obviously, the ball's in their court. It's up to them whether or not they're going to engage further, but you've given it your best shot and you've given them that opportunity to engage. And again, that engagement, that cultivation piece early on is what we want. So taking all of that into consideration here, once you have recurring donors, regardless of the number, if you have 2 recurring donors or you have 300 recurring donors, you should have a stewardship plan in place for them. All of your donors should be treated as more than just a dollar sign, but since you will be sending fewer acknowledgement letters and not sending out appeal letters, and mostly you're just sending an annual acknowledgement letter and receipt, it means that there's more of a chance that your recurring donors will not hear from you until you have to call them for either a request for an upgrade in their giving, or if their credit card expires. You do not want the first time that they've heard from you to be to get your credit card redone. That's treating them like a dollar sign. You want to have that relationship established. You want to have said thank you. You want to have them understand that they are having a positive impact and that you care about that, so that when you have to pick up the phone and say, hey, your credit card expired, we need it again, it's a no-brainer for them. It's, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. Let me get that out for you. I really do recommend that at minimum, you reach out to them every 6 months with something that's donor-centric and not fundraising based. It really is just going back to validating their importance to your organization. It generates goodwill and excitement, and that can make them in turn care more about your mission, their giving. It matters more. And so when they do hear from you for that upgrade or that credit card decline, they're totally comfortable with that conversation. This next part on the slide is important enough that I'm going to read it directly from the slide, which I try to avoid. But again, it is really important here. Impact statements are a great way to generate buy-in from your recurring donors. Telling them what their gift does at their donation level ensures your donors feel like they are making a real difference. So that is so big. They need to know that that monthly gift is making a difference, or that quarterly gift is making a difference, so that it is important to them to continue making it. You can also use those impact statements later when asking them to upgrade their recurring donation. So again, you can reiterate what impact their current gift is making, and then you can let them know what that next level up can do. And also make sure that your team is aware of each level, as some donors may want to call and have a chat about their impact before agreeing to upgrade a gift. And it can be really helpful for everyone on your staff to know what that means, where they're at, to be able to thank them for what they're doing, all of those pieces. So now we're going to pop over into Bloomerang itself, and we are going to take a look at how recurring giving looks in the database. So we're going to walk through some of that. So give me just a second to get that shared. All right. So this is my training database. Can you guys all see it, Diana?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay, so my database is all Star Wars, so it's a little bit nerdy, but I'll try to keep the nerdiness to a minimum. So we are going to go in and we're going to build a new recurring gift. We have a donor named Sabine Wren. We have a relationship with her, but she's decided to go on a recurring schedule. So we are going to go to Sabine's record. And I'm going to add in a new recurring gift here. So if you click down on the caret, we can come to new recurring donation. And we are going to put in the amount. So she has opted into a $20 monthly donation. The fund is going to be the Kashyyyk Cleanup Efforts Fund. Campaign is going to be Veterans of the Rebellion, and appeal is going to be, we're not going to put an appeal. So she's just decided. So this is what it is. So as a note, in Bloomerang, fund is the only thing that's required. Campaign and appeal are both optional. So you guys can set that up in a way that makes sense for you. Since this is a sample database here, I'm going to say auto payment is none. But if you do have, credit card processing set up, you can click on credit card and put all of the information in. We are also going to set up the schedule. So we're going to say a start date of today. Frequency, we're going to leave as monthly. I, at this point, am going to leave end date blank because remember, a recurring gift does not have an end date. It's infinite until they reach out and say they don't want to give anymore. So at the point in time when Sabine reaches out, if she reaches out, I will add in an end date of that day that she says I no longer want to give a recurring gift. But right now it's going to stay blank. So I'm going to save this. And we're going to see the new recurring gift schedule on her timeline. So if you would like to add a gift to it, add an actual recurring gift. So let's say we're going to make the donation, we can say new donation, and now we're going to have two options. So we can add a brand new donation, or we can add a recurring donation installment. So I'm going to click the installment, and I'm going to create the payment. It's now going to ask me if this should be applied to this schedule or if it's an extra payment. We're going to apply it to the schedule, and we're going to create. And so now we can see here that we have the gift date, the amount, our funding campaign match. We didn't fill anything else in, so there's nothing else to worry about there. And it now links us back to this recurring donation schedule. So I will save this. Oh, she paid cash. That's fine. Save this. And now we can see recurring payment. And down here, we can see recurring schedule. So if we click back into this payment, we can always click here. And it is going to link us back to this schedule. So we can see exactly which schedule it is, the date, the next payment due. Frequency is monthly on the 23rd. Last payment status was successful. So now that you've kind of seen us break all of this out, you can see that there is a recurring schedule here and recurring payments. This schedule is considered raised, not revenue. So this schedule has just said, hey, this is going to happen. It's on the 23rd of the month. We can expect this money to come in. This recurring payment up here is revenue. It's cash in the door. She actually made a $20 payment, so now we have $20. I think it's important to kind of establish that difference. If you are pulling reports with amount and not breaking out revenue amount, that can get a little bit skewed. But again, you can see both here. So you can see what the schedule looks like, payments, all of that, all right here on your timeline. So I built out a report. As you can see, I've already clicked into it today, but it's the Recurring Donors Report with Status. So in this report, I am just looking for the recurring donation schedules. So for this one, I don't want to see all of the payments. I just want to see who has a recurring gift. I want to see the status. So active gifts here, these are the ones where payments have been made. They've been made on time. We have everything going. They're running how they should run. These ones down here are overdue. So these ones are running behind schedule. So this is that group that you need to look into the reasons why it's overdue. In this case, Leah, for example, with as sad as it is, she's passed away. So she's no longer going to be able to give a monthly schedule. So I need to come up here and I need to amend this end date so that we know that we should not be expecting a recurring gift from Leah every month anymore. For those other ones, we don't know what the reason is. So we should reach out to these donors and we can have a conversation with them. We've been really good stewards, so this is not the first time they're going to hear from us. And we can call them and say, hey, it looks like we need a new credit card number from you. Do you mind giving that to me? And you guys can go from there, get the information, it'll tokenize, and then your schedules will continue. So that is how we build it out in Bloomerang. And then the other piece that I wanted to talk about here is that stewardship piece that I talked about. So this is one of those opportunities with your recurring gift program that you can really make some things fun. And we don't always have the opportunity to do that in the nonprofit world, especially for people who are dealing with some really kind of rough issues in their nonprofit. You know, it's really hard to try to do something fun when, you know, you're a domestic violence shelter or, you know, that kind of thing. It can be a little bit rough. So I recommend kind of taking a look around and seeing how you can, you know, maybe fun is the wrong word. Maybe unique is the better word. How you can make this interesting and unique while still sharing that impact with your recurring donors, while still, you know, communicating to them and thanking them. So my sample database here is for a nonprofit for cleaning up the galaxy after, you know, galactic war. So the stewardship piece that I came up with, and it's an email that'll go out. This one is talking about the impact and that my donors have had as recurring donors with our Kashyyyk planetary cleanup. So instead of this coming from me, the executive director, which is great and really nice, but can get a little bit boring, we decided to send this letter out from the planet Kashyyyk. So we added in our Bloomerang fields here. So it'll say dear and then their informal name. It's me, the planet Kashyyyk. I'm sure you have never received an email from a planet before. Admittedly, I've never sent an email before. Before the Empire and its war machine came to my shores, I never felt the need to. The Empire polluted my air, poisoned my water, and nearly decimated the worship tree, the lifeblood of my native Wookiee population. Post-liberation, most people wrote me off and believed I would never be habitable again. But you are not most people. You believed in me when no one else did. Your faith in me, along with your monthly gift of whatever their amount is, has ensured my survival. Teams on the ground here have been able to purify my waterways, which means life is possible here once more. So again, we're talking impact. We have that amount, we have that impact. I cannot possibly thank you enough for your continued support, but the closest I will be able to get is to say thank you in my native Shirwook language. And I don't speak Wookiee, so there it is. From the center of my core, Kashyyyk. P.S. I've included before and after photos below so you can see the difference your donation is making. The first photo was taken at the beginning of the cleanup efforts nearly 3 years ago, and the second photo was taken just a few weeks ago. I feel like a whole new planet. So this is a really fun kind of kitschy piece that's doing exactly what you need it to do. It's helping them to buy into the mission. It is helping them get excited about what they're doing, and you're actively showing impact. So again, if you're a nonprofit that's dealing with some kind of rough topics, instead of sending it from the executive director, you can send it from a blanket that's kept 100 puppies warm, or you can send it from the kitchen that gets to cook meals for your homeless population. There's a lot that you can do to say thank you, to keep it interesting, to keep it really dynamic, and really, really keep your donors excited about giving to you. And this is the perfect time to do it because, again, you're not sending this out monthly. This is probably every 6 months kind of a thing that you're doing. You're going to reach out to them. You're also going to send them, their annual acknowledgement letter where you say thank you and you send a receipt. Both are really important. But this is the kind of thing that gets your recurring donors to chat to their coworkers about what a fun message they received and how important it is. And, they can kind of become cheerleaders for you in a way that a really nice letter from your executive director saying thank you is just not going to do. So I really encourage you guys to think outside of the box with this, because again, this is one place where you really do have that opportunity to show impact in a really real and powerful way. So in Bloomerang, we have the ability to process automatically according to their schedule. We can also alert for failed auto pay failures. So I'll show you that in a second. And then we have a recurring giving option on online forms. And like I just showed you, you can build really cool impact pieces to say thank you through emails, letters, all of that in Bloomerang. So to create that recurring donation schedule again, the important parts here are the amount. You're going to need that fund, auto payment method if you have it, and that start date is going to be really important because that's when it's going to come out. And then we also do have a payment failures dashboard. So I think Diana's going to talk a little bit more about this, but this is kind of what it looks like. Diana, do you have anything really important you wanted to say here?
Sure. A great thing about this is as soon as there's any payment failures, you will get that notification. So you'll notice that number at the top right of your database as soon as there's a failure that happens. And what we recommend is really making sure that you catch it before those payment failures pile up. We let you know as soon as something happens, but the ball is now in your court to resolve those payment failures. So try to resolve them as soon as possible.
And then we do have a couple of additional templates that we'll pop in and take a look at, but they're a little bit scattered. So I wanted to show you these on this slide first. So in our report template section, we have the monthly donors. So this is donors with an active recurring gift schedule or 12 plus gifts in the last 365 days. This report can be really helpful, especially if you have someone who's always giving and you've just never created a recurring gift schedule for them. It was never caught that that's what they're doing. They just write a check or, fill out your form every single month on your website. So that can be really helpful. Reach out to them, see if they would like to automate it, make their lives a little bit easier too. The second one is the projected cash flow report, and that one lets you go in and see what's upcoming. So it'll tell you the amounts of your pledges and recurring donations, and you can change that time schedule. And then lastly, you can look at loyal donors. So it's people who have given every single year, during those longer time periods. So if we pop into Bloomerang for this one, I will show you how to get there. So you come to reports, go to reports list, new, start from a template, and they are in here. So we have our monthly donors report, we have our loyal donors report, and we have our projected cash flow report. So when you click on these, it builds out that template for you. And then again, you can go in and you can adjust that if you need to. So you can come in and say, I want to see it during last fiscal year, if you're running reports, for example. This fiscal year, you can see things for 2 years out. You can see things out for the next 90 days. So again, this is really, really helpful to kind of see what's going on in your database. All right. And then for reporting, I know we already took a look at a report But basically for this, you're going to use transaction-based reporting. We already have those report templates, so you can start from there and build out. If you're a little bit more savvy on building reports, you can build one from scratch. I'll go in and show you how I built my reports. But the really nice thing is you can both filter and add columns for different things. So schedule status, for example, if you just want to report for everybody that's overdue, you can put that into the filter section. I just added a column for it. I wanted to see everybody regardless of their status. You can take a look at things like, their schedule amount, that frequency, all of the rest of that. Basically, if you see it on your recurring gifts, you can actually report on it. So again, back in Bloomerang here, I did this recurring donation report with status. So all I looked for was the type. I just wanted to see everybody with a recurring donation schedule. And then I added a column for the schedule status. I just wanted to see what that is. But again, if you wanted to filter for that, you can include that up in your filter section and just take a look at your overdues. So if you need help building out those reports, our support team can help. We also do have coaching sessions specifically for building out reports. So, if you need to understand a little bit deeper what some of that is, we can help you with that. But stop one is probably going to be the support team. They can make sure that you've built it out for what you're looking for. And if you're looking for help with column names, they can tell you what those ones are. All right. So from here, all of this is in the knowledge base section of Bloomerang. So I've linked in here all of our different help articles for adjusting a bunch of this, fixing credit card payment failures, creating those recurring gifts, all of that. And then I also do have some additional resources. So the Bloomerang website has quite a lot of help on, why you should build out a recurring gift program, how to do it. So we have information on donor-centric communications, again, instead of fundraising-centric communications. Information on sustainability, just general donor retention information. And then additionally, there is a blog by Erica Wasdorp specifically on the importance of recurring donors in your database. And then I've linked out the importance of retaining first-time donors. So that will go a lot deeper into what we talked about for all of that and why it's so important to reach out to them. All right, so with everything we've gone over, I do kind of have some action items here for you guys. So these are your next steps. So first thing to do is decide when the best time is for your organization to implement a recurring specific appeal. So this is an appeal that you are specifically sending out saying, hey, we want to make you recurring donors. Take a look at your development plan, take a look at your appeals. A really good opportunity, whichever one of your appeals performed, either like the most poorly performing one might be a really good time to do a different kind of ask, or the one that was kind of that midstream. You don't want to go for your most successful because that's bringing in money and you don't want to, necessarily muddy those waters. But find a time that works, that seems like a good opportunity to send out this appeal and then get it written and get it sent out. So to do that, you're going to create your appeal recipient list, and you're going to segment into giving level based asks. So again, we kind of talked about that. So this is what they're giving. This is what we would like them to give. Segmenting is optional, but it is recommended. Asking people to give a recurring gift can be overwhelming for some people because it seems like a really, really high amount, when really you might just be asking them to give $5 a month. So make sure that you're making that really manageable for your donor base. And then you need to create a stewardship plan and add it into your development plan. And don't forget to create your fund piece. You also need to create your impact statements and ensure your team is comfortable talking about them. And then you need to build out your recurring gift reports. Again, support can help with that. If you're really just uncomfortable with reporting, let us know. we can give you some other options there. All right, Diana.
Thanks so much, Di. That was a lot of great information. And before we get to all of your lovely questions, I also wanted to share that this officially kicks off what we're calling our complete recurring giving roadmap. We know that there's so much to talk about when it comes to recurring giving, and this is just the beginning of the conversation. So after today, you may have already seen on our Academy page that we've already scheduled, or we already have the schedule there for our class on loving your recurring donors. We also have a class on keeping your recurring donors and upgrading your recurring donors. So that's something you can look forward to through the next month and a half. And we have a guest presenter joining us, Erica Wasdorp, who is, among other things, she has authored Monthly Giving, The Sleeping Giant, Monthly Giving Made Easy, and many other monthly giving resources. So please join us for those classes. You may even win a copy of one of her books through a raffle that we're holding if you attend her classes. So please join us for that. And then, Di, we do have a couple of questions that we have here.
Sure.
Wonderful. So first, there were some questions earlier about, Amy asks, we send semi-annual newsletters, which is a hard copy with a bunch of good impact content, but also a solicitation with a remittance envelope enclosed. Should this not be sent to recurring donors? How often should we be soliciting recurring donors, or should they be included in the regular appeals?
Sure. So one of the main benefits of a recurring gifts program is that you're cutting the cost by not soliciting them regularly as part of the recurring appeals. So if you send out 4 appeals a year, your recurring donors should not be receiving those because they're already giving to you every month. So a lot of people will decide, okay, we will do, an extra ask at the end of the year. So our end of year appeal goes to everybody, for example. And that's fine. If you have a monthly newsletter that is, and again, this kind of gets a little but if you have it and it's an email and there's a direct appeal button in there that goes directly to your online giving page, as long as it's an indirect ask, so the button's there, but you're not asking directly for, solicited gifts in your text, totally fine to go to your recurring donors. But they're already giving, so consistently asking them to give can become frustrating for those donors because they are giving. So why are you still asking me to give because I am giving? Do you even know I'm giving? So again, they need to be more than that $sign. But oftentimes your recurring donors do want to get newsletters. They do want to see what's going on. They do want to see those different impacts. They want to celebrate those wins with you guys. They really want to see what new programming is coming up. So keep reaching out to them. Absolutely.
Awesome. And in a similar vein, is there a recommended, at what amount should you ask donors to become a recurring donor? What if they're already a major donor, or is there a certain amount threshold before you think, okay, maybe we can ask them to be part of our recurring giving program?
Sure. So this question gets complicated because every organization self-defines what a major gift is. For some organizations, a $500 gift is a major gift. For other organizations, their major gift officers aren't getting out of bed for less than $100,000. So the short answer is no, there's not. The long answer is, do some evaluation. You can run some reports that show, everyone that's giving $100 or less, cumulatively in the last year, everyone who's giving, $1 to $250. So you can break out some reports that way to get an idea of where your giving lies. But honestly, I would say, what you're looking for in your recurring giving is an upgrading giving. So I can pull that chart back up. Let me come back up here. So basically that $5 a month gift is going to give you $60 a year. So, people who are giving less than $60 a year can absolutely be asked for the gift because, again, that $5 a month is an upgrade. But you're going to have to kind of play that by ear on, what are your levels and what's important, all of that. As far as major donors becoming a recurring giver, most of the time for major donors, you're going to be wanting to ask for pledges. So those very large sums of money, potentially over a couple of years. So probably not asking them to become recurring donors. I'm hesitating because I know there's at least one major gifts officer out there that's going to say, hang on, wait a second, and they're not going to be wrong. But again, most of the time, you're not going to want your major donors to be monthly givers unless they're giving at a much higher rate than $25 a month. So please don't hate me, major gifts officers. I'm totally on your side and I totally get it.
That's awesome. And that's a great point too. And we're also thinking about that in terms of the difference between a pledge and a recurring donation in Bloomerang, right? So if you're entering a recurring gift in Bloomerang, it's the frequency, it's the smaller amount at greater frequencies versus a larger amount that could be paid in installments. But yes, if we have major gifts officers in the audience, please weigh in the chat. We would love to hear from you. And I'm sure everyone else who's here would love to hear from you as well.
And I will absolutely say, with Bloomerang customers as well. So, it's kind of across the board, but we definitely have people who have constituents who are donating somewhere between $100 and $500 a month. So it absolutely does happen. I just would not necessarily recommend going the recurring gift route before major pledge route for your major donors. So yes, there we are.
Awesome. There's a question here from Danielle. At what point in an organization's development should you initiate a recurring gifts program? What should you make sure you have capacity to do before initiating this publicly? She doesn't want to start something with donors and then not have time for follow through.
I love that. And that's a really important question because the follow through is so important. So again, with this, it is actually a little bit of a streamlined process because you can automatically exclude your recurring donors from appeals, which means anybody writing in through paper, that's less data entry because you're not going to have to get that remittance envelope with that check and manually enter all of that in. But I don't think there's any point where saying you're too young or too early or too small to have a recurring gifts program. And I think that's why a development plan is so important, regardless of the size of your organization. The benefit of having a development plan is what you're doing when your appeals are going out, when your newsletters are going out, when you're going to have to prep for a board meeting or when you're doing an event. So whether you're small and you don't do all of those things or you're really large and you're doing a ton of them, use that as your guide and say, okay, we send out 4 appeals a year, but I know that every May we're not sending an appeal and we're not doing much. And that is the perfect time for me to put time on my calendar specifically for my recurring donors. And you can, use the entire month of May or a week or a day, whatever you have the capacity for to write those thank yous, to write those impacts, to really work on that recurring gifts program. Once you have a more established recurring gifts program, a lot of it, will take care of itself. I think too many people think recurring gifts programs are set it and forget it because you can't actually forget it. You have to do that follow-up. But other than the time you're doing the follow-up, you can forget it. So, just make sure you're staying on top of your credit card failures, but you're doing that anyway, hopefully. So this is just part of that. And you're, thanking them for their giving and you're just kind of doing all of that, but it's worked into your calendar so it's not overwhelming and it's not going to sneak up on you.
Absolutely. The work doesn't stop once you start the recurring gifts going. That's why we have classes coming up on loving your recurring donors and keeping your recurring donors, and then hopefully upgrading your recurring donors as well. We have a question from Lisa. I set up a special donation page to allow constituents to sign up for a monthly recurring gift themselves. Is there any information regarding if it's best to have them contact you and you key the recurring gift, or let them do it via the donation page?
So I think I might need a little bit more information on this. So did you set up a page specifically for recurring donors to have them go on and make a recurring donation versus just doing a recurring donation via the form? the kind of standard form?
And that's tricky too, because our standard form, the donors can choose to make a recurring gift, but there isn't an option to make it a recurring gift by default unless you self-host the form.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like Lisa sent a link to their form here, so I'm taking a look.
Sure.
It's a standard form, so customers have, or donors have, the option to make it a recurring donation. It is not a form dedicated for recurring donations.
Okay. So I think it's a really good thing to leave that option up kind of all the time, because again, I think that you will have donors that come on and they give a gift, 3 times in a year, and they're like, oh my gosh, I should really just make this recurring. So you absolutely will get recurring donors that way. Make sure that you're setting up a report if you're allowing that option on your forms for, recurring donors, and their schedule was created last month or this month or weekly, kind of depending on what your donation capacity looks like. And then reach out to them, say thank you for their gift, and then make sure that you're aware that they exist and that they're going to now be receiving those stewardship pieces that you're sending, and however you're sending them. With that said, an actual push for recurring donors is a very specific ask. It's asking them to become a recurring donor. Again, you can talk about the impact of recurring donations. You can even tell them they'll receive, for example, if everyone gets your end of year appeal, you can tell them you'll be saving us money and postage because we won't be sending anything other than that end of year appeal, or we won't be sending you anything else, depending on how you're handling things. So you can tell them even those minimal impacts, that postage isn't being spent, that paper, that envelope, that ink. So that's even more cost that they're saving. And so you can have kind of a remittance envelope for that as well. Like, I want to do a recurring gift. Here's my card. You can also set it up to go online and do your recurring donation here and give them your URL information through that letter. Obviously, if you're sending out email appeals, just link it directly there. But I would also say in all of this that handling donor information like credit card information, I think that keeping that to a minimum is helpful. So if you have the kind of donor base that is comfortable using a website and putting their own information in, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Some of you out there probably have a donor base that would really prefer to just give you the information and let you do it. Just make sure that you're entering it correctly. It's being tokenized. You're not saving that data in the database. And then, shred their credit card information that they've sent you.
Wonderful, thank you. And then we have a question here from Lauren. How might you manage in a cohesive way, managing a large database with some older constituents, cycling out old donors and adding new donors?
So when you say cycling out old donors, do you mean people who haven't given over a period of time, or are we talking age? Because I don't think you should be cycling out older donors. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page here before I answer this.
Lauren says donors that have not given in more than 2 years.
Sure. So there are a couple of different things you can do with that. You can update their status to say inactive. And then if you need them in your database for reporting, keep them in there. You can also reach out to the Bloomerang support team for a mass delete, and we can mass delete that information out of your database for you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Di. We do have several classes as well on making sure your database is clean, and we also have classes coming up on recapture lapsed or lapsing donors, so keep an eye out for those. Related to that, we have another question here on, do we have a template or sample of a solid development plan? Di, would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
We do. We also have a Bloomerang Academy class that I lead on it. So I will make sure that that is linked as part of the class materials you guys receive. And there is a template on the Bloomerang website that you guys can use and fill out your development plan, and you can do that in tandem with the class.
Exactly. And I wasn't going to bring this up, but we do offer coaching and consulting services as well for anyone who's interested. So I'm going to go ahead. If you can talk to us a little bit about what those options are there, I'm going to launch a poll to let us know if you're interested in any of these services.
Sure. So coaching is basically helping you figure out what your needs are kind of at a higher level. So hopefully you've watched the Academy class. You just need some clarification. For things like reporting, I kind of talked about that. A coaching class for reporting will actually go in and explain to you what the filters mean. If you have a couple of reports that you need built out, we can help you build those. But basically, it's giving you those tools to go in and be able to do it yourself while, being able to ask questions and making sure you're doing it correctly with a live coach. Consulting, so we have a couple of different consulting options. So customized consulting is really taking a look at one very specific issue you have that is big and complicated and not really, appropriate for a support phone call or something that can be handled over 1 hour of a coaching session. So a bigger problem that we can take a look at and come up with solutions for. We also have quarterly consulting where you get to work with me and we will work in your database for, it starts at 4 quarters and you can go from there, and we will pull a whole bunch of analytics and metrics over those 4 quarters, and we will then be able to do a 1 hour kind of customized coaching each quarter so that we can dive into things that you need help with. Some recent ones, I actually just did a development plan with an organization that had never created one. So our 1 hour for that quarter was sitting down with everything they did, sorting through it, getting it into the plan so that they could take it to their board and get it approved. First time donors is another one I just did with one of our customers and worked through what their first time donor calls would look like and who should do what. And we kind of figured out that process for them. So those are kind of some of our options, and we can customize quite a bit else too. So if you guys have things that you need, our coaching, I'll put the link to the website where you can take a look at all of the classes, but those are broken out by class offerings. So you can really figure out, what your training needs are. We'll give you the links to the Academy classes that you can watch, and then we can really dive in with your team and make sure everyone's on the same page with that.
Awesome. We also have some comments on Hi Kitty.
That was Amelia. She likes to make an appearance on most of my calls.
Yes, if you've attended our other Bloomerang Academy classes as well, not just with Di, but with our other instructors, you'll meet all the different Bloomerang pets that like to join us in our webinars. I think we still have a lot of questions, and if we don't get to your questions live, please don't worry. We will make sure to follow up via email. Di, in your experience, what are some of the most impactful resources to share with recurring donors, such as early release reports, emails, newsletters, etc.?
Yeah, so whatever you guys call it, whatever your impact is what you want to share with them. And your really big wins is the other thing. Because your recurring donors, again, your goal is to make them your bread and butter. You know that money's coming in every month and you can rely on that. So if you were able to do something above and beyond, with a big gift that came in, you were also able to still keep the lights on because your recurring donors were there helping you keep the lights on. So they do need to know about those really big wins, those really big impacts, all of that, because they've helped to get you to that point. They've helped to get you kind of over that threshold where you can be doing more and be doing bigger things because they are there as that really solid core of support. So acknowledge them as such. Make sure that they're aware of those big wins. Make sure that they're aware of your ongoing programming, because again, that's the kind of thing they're helping with, especially if it's designated. recurring gifts. So some recurring donors will give to a specific program or a specific effort that you're doing, and making sure that they know that that's going strong, and that, you know, that they're able to actually help that population that you serve, you know, receive those services or receive whatever it is that they're receiving from you. That's really going to, again, continue to make that really big impact on them. It's going to make them excited and happy. And there are a lot of organizations out there that are doing quite a bit with their donors in, you know, not necessarily a really big way. They're just giving a report of what happened. So, you know, here was your giving. Here's what we've done this year. You were part of that. Thank you. That matters. That's really helpful. So make sure that whatever you're sending them, impact is part of that, so that they understand that they are a driving force in that impact.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Di. Thank you everyone for being here. We're right at about time. So I just wanted to share again, Di, if you could jump to our slides on our upcoming classes. We had a question as to when these classes were going to be coming up. So our Loving Your Recurring Donors, that's happening next week. The registration link is already on our website, so you can take a look at that. That is happening next Wednesday, March 31st. Keeping Your Recurring Donors is happening on April 14th, and Upgrading Your Recurring Donors is happening on May 5th. I will also send registration links for those dates when we send out the recording and the notes for this class. And as always, thank you again so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you for your wonderful questions. And I know people are also exchanging ideas through the chat. That's why I love this community. Everyone's just so willing to share and help each other out. So thank you so much for that. And we hope you have a great rest of your day. And we see you not just in our complete recurring giving roadmap, but in other Academy classes coming up. Have a lovely day. Bye.
Bye.